Oh, sorry, now I just remember a happy memory of that house. I must have been quite possibly a year or two. The floor of the house, the courtyard, was made of a stone floor, and that was washed regularly. But they used to let me, to go on it. I had my pants, I can picture it, I had my pants on, but I didn't have anything on top. And I can just slide over the water, and that comes back to me as a memory. They used to let me as though I was swimming through, because it's covered with water and then they sweep it away.
There was a drape on the wall of an underwater scene, and we had a very old-fashioned record player called a decalion, and I would play the Four Seasons and dance for hours. I thought that if I danced long enough, I would fly.
I had a big old gramophone, big old sort of 1950s gramophone, and I used to just listen to in all the world's sort of radio stations, and I remember turning the dial and listening to all these foreign languages, and it was like you get DJs mixing now. So I used to do sort of that before all that was sort of, I'd get written all these really old songs. And
my music changed, my room changed. If my fashion changed, my room changed. That sort of mood. In fact, my room was a pure reflection of my mood at the time. So it could be covered in loads of posters of pop stars or people of influence in my life, or it could be just loads of graffiti, or it could just be jet black, or it could be painted in warm colours. It was quite an unusual room. One side of the wall was as the hallway's glass went up, it was all glass.
There was a green window on the left-hand side on the small landing, and it used to, when the sun came through, it shed this beautiful green light throughout the house, but with the green carpet. So everything was green, a lot of green. And I used to sit on that landing and listen to my mum and dad arguing or whatever was going on in the kitchen, and I'd be bathed in this green light and unobserved. So it was one of my favourite places. And I used to get to hear what was going on, all the gossip and all the drama. And, that place was also a very lonely place.
I had a room sort of in the corner upstairs, and the one window opening into the courtyard. And I would have a big table in the room and one chair, and a kettle and a tea making apparatus. So I would take tea after every two hours and just studied medicine, and I graduated studying in that very room.
And so if you wanted privacy as a child, that's where I'd go, and it'd be like you'd close the door behind you, and there would never be any heating in that room, because you just went there at night time and you didn't heat the room for night time. So it was like a bit like a fridge. Everything was white. The walls were white, the bedding was white, the furniture was white. It's a bit like an ice palace.
I didn't like my bedroom because it was always really, really cold. There was no central heating in those days, and we didn't have any heating upstairs. The house was built in 1952, and so I spent as little time as possible in my bedroom and liked to be downstairs where Mum was always doing something, ironing or baking or something or other, and I'd sit and try and do my homework and chat to her, sometimes both at the same time.
I didn't particularly look for a corner which was my place. because it was either being with my sisters in the room where we played or where we slept, or being in the kitchen with my mother, when I was helping her to cook or learning to cook. So I didn't, although sometimes I would just curl up with my book, reading on my own, but I don't really go for this place which was a little corner of my own.
Between the two rooms downstairs there was a small little hallway and a doorway that went to the cupboard under the stairs, and I guess years ago that would have been the pantry, but my nan had like a kitchen extension on the back, so she didn't need the pantry. So this was the space where the Hoover got kept and where all the jackets got hung up and all the rest of it. And I used to just go in there and build little dens out of all the old jackets, and I remember the smell of sort of dust and age and a bit mildewy, but that being a pleasant kind of comforting smell in a weird sort of way. And I remember my nan's old fur coats.
Ornaments and lace and paintings and textures and fluffy rugs and little fake china ornaments and snow globes and books. So many books. And
we had set one room up in the house as a museum, and we used to get little things from the grounds and put them all out in one room, and this would be the museum, lots of rocks and lots of things from the ground. There was also photographs, pictures, books of some of the journeys that we'd had up the Nile and outside of Dodoma, a little bit further. So it was full of memorabilia, it was full of things that were prized items, let's say, things that were collected.
To me, it was a maze. It was a maze of rooms, but it was comfortable and it was loving. Always a lot of food, always a lot of people there, in and out. My grandparents had chickens. They raised chickens and they sold the eggs. So it was always busy in the back. Go and get the eggs.
The house is a split level house. So from the road, people don't tend to realise that at the back, it's sort of like an upstairs and downstairs. And so the downstairs bit of it was like a sand pit. So I would go downstairs and I would play in the sand and I would make mud pies and stuff.
Every set of flats behind it had eine Sandkiste, a sand pit, but square, clean, quite big sand pit for children to play in. It was really nice because people's windows would open out onto it. So you felt protected because people that didn't go to work, so elderly people, would just open their windows, put a nice big pillow over the sill, and they'd rest their arms on the window, and they'd spend all day looking out, watching the things, and the children were just watched.
In the morning when you get up, you couldn't wait to get up, and you went knocking on each other's doors, and then we'd end up playing in there. Because we were very free, we were allowed to go wherever. There wasn't this restriction or of adults watching us. Adults went to work. There weren't hardly any adults around. And so from there we used to go out exploring further. And I remember that we used to play a bit, start off there, and then we used to be like the last row in that, it was called a township. And then there was this field with the railway line, and we used to go and play dolly house, housey, and we made these elaborate houses.
Out in what we call the garden, the backyard, we will call it, we'll play out there under the trees or in the trees. We do a lot of climbing, picking fruits and things like this.
Coming from a farming background, the house wasn't where the children would hang about in. So we didn't have a favorite place inside the house itself. We played outside all the time. The house was mainly kept clean. Children would just come in. we had a room set aside just for visitors, like most West Indians. They have what they call their front room, which is decorated, and the only time visitors goes in there is when maybe the vicar comes along, or and maybe somebody important comes along, or a family comes along, then you'd use that room. It's not the room you'd actually use.